and the chairman are all asked to please ensure that mobile phones are placed in silent mode, that microphones are switched off whilst not in use and on whilst in use. Agenda item 1, Chairman, would member services please report any apologies for absence?
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Christie, Councillor Count and Councillor Mrs Laws.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 are the previous minutes. These are on pages 5 to 10 of your agenda packs, and we're being asked to approve the public minutes, which are two cabinet meetings, both of which took place on the 7th of November 2025. And this is just the public minutes. May I ask any member who does not agree with those two sets of minutes to indicate that now, please? I see no objections to the proposal to approve both sets of minutes as a correct record, so I shall duly sign them. Thank you, Carol. Right, agenda item 3, there aren't any urgent items today. Agenda item 4, interests. Agenda item 4 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please would you inform the meeting now? Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare for the item agenda number 6 on the draft budget, as I am a trustee of fact, but I will listen to the paper with an open mind.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other declarations of interest from anyone? Then I will make a couple of declarations of interest. In agenda item 6, I'm also a trustee of fact, and in agenda item 11, I'm a member of Whittlesea Town Council and also on the board of the CPCA. Right, we can move on to agenda item 5, which is the draft business plan, which is to be found on pages 11 to 28 of the agenda pack. I don't know if you'd like to, you put a lot more work into this with all due respect than I did, Councillor Tierney. Would you care to just say a few words about it?
Only, Chairman, that I can't take any credit for it. I haven't put a great deal of work in it because it was great when I read it. Normally, in previous years, I've gone back to officers with lots to comment, but there was no need to comment anything. They've done it very well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to second the adoption of the draft business plan. Item is open for discussion. Any comments from anyone? None. The recommendation is set out on page 11 and is for Cabinet to approve the draft business plan for 26-27 for public consultation. Those in favour, please show. That's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to agenda item 6, which is the draft budget and medium-term financial strategy 2026-27, which is to be found on pages 29 to 56 of your agenda pack. I will formally propose this and just say a few words, but first of all, may I just ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Tierney, thank you very much indeed. Right. Various things are included within this. I'm not going to go through it on a line-by-line basis, you'll be pleased to hear. I'll save that for the new year when we actually have more data and something more solid to go on. We produce this paper every year at this time, and it's always produced with some of the same qualifications. Let's first of all, though, look at the revised general fund budget primarily for 25-26. We started off from the budget last year having a projected deficit of £1.432 million, as you'll recall, and I did say at the time, don't worry too much, that number is going to come down significantly as we go through the year. Well, a couple of months ago it had gone up to 1.6 million, but I still had a great deal of confidence, and I'm pleased to say that as of the date these figures were produced, the projected deficit for the year has been reduced from the original 1.432 million down to 307,000. And there is further to go on this. This is not unusual in Fenland District Council, as we know from past experience. There are some changes still to take place. I will continue to push for changes for better use of relevant reserves in some cases. And we are anticipating, well, I'm anticipating, might be a fair thing to say, some better performance figures in some areas. For example, the £411,000, which is incorporated within these figures, as being the loss to us in the year for housing benefit, which has been paid out, but where the subsidy hasn't been able to be reclaimed. I'm hopeful that that figure will be slightly less than the 411,000 that we've got at the moment. And there are a number of other areas where I'm hopeful, I was going to say confident, wrong word to use, where I'm hopeful that there will be a reduction. The target I've got is to end up for the end of the year in a surplus. I can't guarantee that I'll meet that target, and it may only be met when we get to the final audited figures, but it's the target which I will aim for. As far as next year is concerned, we have a figure showing in this early stage of £1.972 million as being a deficit. And again, I have to make the qualification, the same qualification we made at this stage last year, that this is before we see what the financial settlement is from government. I'm told that that's now expected on the 18th of this month, that we should be getting that on Thursday. And of course, none of us really knows what's in there. I am slightly more optimistic than the numbers which are in here in terms of what will be coming out, not because I've got any special inside knowledge, but just because the way in which government seems to be skewing all of its pre-announcements about what's going to happen with local government finance for next year, the more I think that we will unintentionally be caught up in the better side of the news rather than the worse side of the news. But that's merely my interpretation of what may come out on Thursday. And even then, when it comes out on Thursday, we'll still need to see some of the detail behind it all. We won't see enough of the detail to be able to say on Friday morning, this is exactly where we stand. But by the time we get to the January meeting of O&S in particular, we'll have a much better view as to what the effect of the local government settlement will be on our figures in 26-27. And additionally, the figures have been produced consistently with the way in which they've been produced in previous years. This is the first year that Sian will have been solely responsible as chief accountant for the production of the figures, obviously in conjunction with the rest of her team and with Peter and myself looking over them as well. But Sian has taken the same view deliberately, and with my agreement, taken the same very cautious view about income and very pessimistic view about expenditure, has taken the same view that Mark Saunders did over many, many years. And there are two good reasons to do that. The first is consistency. We know where we stand in relation to previous years because we're doing this in a consistent way to the way in which we've done it in previous years. And the second is it's always better to have much less opportunity for there to be a downside and a better opportunity for there to be an upside in sets of figures. So that 1.972 million figure is not something that we need to be scared of at this time. It is a number which will come down. I again confidently predict that. It will come down over time. It should come down in time for the budget, although you can't always tell. But certainly by the time we're talking about that figure next year, it will, just as last year's figure has substantially reduced, this year's budget figure will also significantly reduce from that 1.972 million. There is one figure which is in this year's accounts, however, which I do need to bring to the attention of members because it is a one-off. It's not the largest adjustment we've got, but it's an unusual one, and as such, it deserves not to be hidden inside so many pages of data. And that is, and highly regrettable, that we've had to accept a revenue loss of £362,000 because of the, I'll use the word, amalgamation of the Federated Hermes Trust Property Fund into another property fund. Now, it's supposedly a joining together of two funds. I see it much more as a takeover of one of another, but I don't think I'm allowed to say that. But the problem was that the combined fund, and we went into this fund with our eyes open, knowing that over the long term, because at the time we thought we had a long term, but over the long term, we would not merely get revenue coming in at a predictable rate, we'd also have a reasonable capital return. But with this amalgamation, unfortunately, local councils are no longer permitted to be members. So we were booted out prematurely with no comeback. Officers did make inquiries about what comeback we might have, and we had no recourse to any sort of compensation on this, unfortunately. So we've had to just absorb a £362,000 capital loss, which effectively has to go to revenue. We couldn't take it in the capital account, so it had to go to revenue. And despite that 362,000 in the current year's figures, as I say, we're still only showing a deficit for the year, projected outturn of 307k. If it hadn't been for that, we'd already be showing a surplus outturn for this year. and that's before any further action is taken either by me on various areas or in housing in particular on recovering some of the housing benefit paid, which otherwise we wouldn't have been able to recover. So that's a summary of where we are for both for the current year for the general fund budget and for next year as the general fund budget. I'm not going to go into details because it's all written down there, the capital programme for the current year, capital programme for next year, and also the draft medium-term financial strategy. Some of you may be slightly puzzled by the fact that the draft medium-term financial strategy covers the period up to 2030, 2031, and that the capital programme goes up to 2028, 29. But at the moment, we have no legal guarantee that local government reorganisation is going to take place. However likely we may think it is, it's still not certain. I won't regard it as being, well, it won't be certain until the statutory instrument is actually passed by both Houses of Parliament, which won't be happening until the summer at the earliest. And it wouldn't be, I don't believe it will even be published before May or maybe June. So until we're at that stage, we as a local authority have to be prudent. We have to assume that we are going to continue to operate indefinitely, and we have to plan financially accordingly. If, as we expect, come the summer, we do get this statutory instrument in place, which will mean that local government reorganisation will take place, and if it takes place on the 1st of April 2028, as we currently anticipate, but we don't know, if that's the case, then when we're producing these figures in future, we will not be producing them for a period beyond the legal lifetime of the local authority. But at the moment, there is no limit on the legal lifetime, so they're being produced in the standard way. And I think that's all I need to say. I've been told already by Councillor Hoy not to speak for too long on this subject, and I may already have gone beyond the limit she'd set for me. So I'm happy to propose this. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Tierney, for seconding. Open it up for any comments or questions from any members. And Councillor Hoy, you managed to get your hand up just before Councillor Tierney.
Yeah, so although I said I didn't want to extend this, I do actually have a question which probably will seem a very silly question, but just genuinely interested. So obviously at the moment we have a medium-term financial strategy which predicts what's going to happen over the next few years. But then if we cease to exist, and you say then we won't, I think I have to explain, then we won't be able to plan for what's going to happen. Will that mean that we've got like a massive cost in the final year because we can't spread things in future years?
The simple answer to that is no. It's slightly more complicated than that because there may be some termination costs that we may have to incur, but I expect that many of those termination costs will actually be passed on to the new unitary authority, and relatively few of them, and relatively small amount in terms of amount, would lie with Fenland District Council. But generally, all of the assets, liabilities, future income and future expenditure that this council has will be passed on to the new unitary authority that we're part of. So it's not that the deficits or the income disappear or have to be accounted for in one final year in FDC. It will just be passed on to the new unitary authority. Councillor Tierney, was it the same question?
Not at all.
Oh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm quite boring. I tend to watch what goes on around the country in other councils, and all over the place, not every council, but all over the place, there are councils in all sorts of different financial distress. And I often look at the terrible situation they've got themselves in through one decision or another. And I wonder if people actually realise that quietly in the background here at FDC, we are a sound, stable and steady council. And that is because of the hard work of yourself and our fantastic officers who deal with our finances and our other business. And even though we've frozen council tax for, what is it, 8 or 9 years now, and still delivering new services, still creating new ideas and new prospects like the Fenland Inspire, still doing new things, and yet we've managed to do it, and we've managed to do it with such a solid, sound budget every single year. Right, we start off with because we estimate realistically, and we start off with a high deficit, and then we bring it down as we get things into focus and we understand what the figures actually are. And it's just hard work that does that. I'm not sure. I don't suppose the people involved, yourself and the officers, ever get the credit they deserve. I'm not sure that the people of Fenland really quite understand how sound the finances here are and how unusual that is in some cases. And I think it's sad that LGR might put an end to that, but I think we should at least be proud of what we've achieved so far. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Tierney. If we were another sort of council, what we would do is we'd print a council newspaper, we'd fill it full of propaganda and information which is beneficial to us, such as that, and we would get it delivered to every single house in the authority, preferably once a month. And it's because we're not that sort of authority that we've got the sound finances that we do have. We're careful with taxpayers' money. We realise it's their money, it's not ours. And that's one of the reasons why we are in the position we are. It's because we're not the sort of authority to spend a significant amount of money on either politically correct items of expenditure or trying to communicate just how wonderful we are. And it seems to me those authorities which spend the most money on projecting how good they are tend to be the worst authorities of all. However, you are right, it's a great shame that this looks as though it's going to be coming to an end, but it's also a shame because, as you'll recall, Councillor Tierney, when I became leader, almost one of the very first things I did was to set up a budget equalisation reserve. And that budget equalisation reserve was there for a very specific reason, and it was that we were going to work as hard as we could, year in, year out, to keep council tax down, either not increase the council tax or, where possible, to reduce it. And we'd continue to do that, and to the extent that we managed during the course of any particular year, to the extent that we managed to get a surplus in the year, rather than just spend the surplus, we'd put it into a reserve against rising council tax in future years. Because even I know you can't continue forever not increasing council tax. At some point or other, there comes a time when you have to. But it looks as though we may not reach that time because of local government reorganisation. So the question is, given what we said that £1.784 million was for, which was to smooth out the council tax charge for local residents, and given that we may not be given the opportunity to do that because of local reorganisation, where morally should that £1.784 million go? Who morally does it belong to? And that's a question we may care to ponder over the course of the next 15 months before the budget setting for the final year of the existence of this authority, assuming that vesting day is the 1st of April 2028. Any other questions, comments? None other? Good. So the recommendations are on page 30 and ask that we agree that the revised general fund budget and revised capital programme for 25-6 be approved, that the draft budget proposals for 26-7 outlined in this report be approved for consultation, and that the proposed capital programme for 26-7 to 28-9 be approved. Those in favour, please show. And that's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to agenda item 7, the adoption of a new planning enforcement policy, which is to be found on pages 57 to 96 of the agenda pack, and well done for those of you who read through all 40 pages in detail. Normally, this would be for Councillor Mrs. Laws to propose. Unfortunately, she's not well, so I'll do my very best to stand in for her. And I will propose that, but who will be kind enough to second this? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you very much indeed. So I think it's worth saying, just giving a bit of background on this, planning enforcement is a core part of maintaining confidence in any planning system. And residents, businesses and developers alike all expect that planning controls will be applied fairly, consistently and transparently. And when something goes wrong, they want to know that the council will act promptly and proportionately to put matters right. Now, our existing policy was agreed back in 2020, in June 2020. And since then, there have been really quite significant changes in legislation, in national guidance, in local priorities, and in public expectations. And it's therefore essential that we do review and update our approach to ensure that it remains fit for purpose and reflects the way the planning system now operates. Now, this updated policy is considered to be fully in line with current national guidance and incorporates new enforcement tools and methods of taking action, ensuring that the council can respond more effectively and proportionately to a wide range of breaches. And it also provides greater clarity on how the council will investigate alleged breaches of planning control, how we'll prioritise our caseload, and the standards that residents, businesses and developers can expect from us. It provides an open and structured approach, ensuring that the most harmful breaches are dealt with swiftly, and that our actions are always lawful, evidence-based, and in the public interest. So importantly, this policy does reinforce the notion that enforcement isn't about punishment. It's about securing the right outcomes for Fenland's communities and protecting the integrity of the planning system. And officers will continue to work constructively with individuals and businesses wherever possible, but the council won't hesitate to take formal action where necessary. So I'd like to thank the planning enforcement team and the head of planning for the thorough work which has been undertaken in bringing this updated policy forward today. It reflects best practice, aligns with current expectations, and supports the council's wider priorities for good growth, place shaping, and community well-being. I'll open the subject up for discussion. Councillor Miss Hoy.
Yes, thank you. I welcome this, especially the clarity, because I have been quite frustrated myself with some of the planning enforcement cases. We've got people being kind of come down heavy on for having a broken window in a conservation area, and then we have the casino building sat there as a complete derelict building site. And I know obviously that's a very basic explanation of it. It's not more complex than that, but it does feel frustrating when you think surely there's one of them is much more harmful to the general public, and that's where we need to be putting our focus on. So I do welcome us being a bit more pragmatic on the less serious cases and taking perhaps sterner action on the more serious cases.
Yes, I think that's a really important point. I think this is a step up both in transparency and in prioritisation. I think that can only be useful. Councillor Mr. Stretch.
Thank you. Yes, I will welcome this report. It is time it was upgraded. As a member of the planning committee, we quite often get many complaints that planning regulations have been breached. And as you well know, we have served a couple this year section 216s, and I think we really need to be progressing and making sure that when there's serious breaches, they're done as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from any members? Right, there aren't any further speakers, therefore the recommendation is set out on page 58 of your agenda pack and asks Cabinet to approve the revised planning enforcement policy. Those in favour, please show. And that's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed, members. We can move on to agenda item 8, which is the Pride in Place Impact Fund project proposal, which is to be found on pages 97 to 100 of your agenda pack. And this concerns the Pride in Place Impact Funding amount of 1.5 million. I will propose it. May I just have a formal seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you very much indeed. It's a good news story in many respects. Somewhat unexpectedly, we've been allocated £1.5 million Pride in Place Impact Fund money, and there are some restrictions, in fact some fairly tight restrictions on how it can be spent. But one of the areas which was specifically mentioned in the paperwork which accompanied this was that it could be spent on open spaces and play park enhancements and initiatives. And that is what is being suggested in this paper, that we approve the allocation of the £1.5 million to open spaces and play park enhancements across the district, and that we ask for this to be expedited as quickly as possible by officers in consultation with the portfolio holders for open spaces and Inspire projects, so that we can move quickly on this, because there is a very tight deadline of March 2027 by which all of this money must be spent. And because of that, we need to start quickly and we need to finish as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we stand to lose some of this grant money, and I've no intention of allowing that to happen. So that is the proposal that we have in front of us. Matters are open for discussion. Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you. Is this capital, or can it be used for revenue?
That's a really good question, and I'm now looking towards Phil, who may be able to answer. It can only be used for capital. Thank you very much indeed, Phil. And we're only intending to use it for capital, I have to say. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is fantastic news. I'm quite excited about it. I think the people of Finland should be excited about it too, because I think it's going to deliver some quite spectacular changes in our area. I just want to say how important I think it is that local councillors retain control over how this spending is done, because they represent the people and the people will be telling them. I know some people have already begun asking what exactly they want. I know that some of it is going to be used to improve places, some of it for new places. I'm sure that the spend will be decided over the next couple of months. And I just want to say that I think any councillor that wants to be involved in this should get in touch with officers and make sure they are involved with it. Don't sit back and wait, because it's going to happen very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's very valuable advice. Councillor Mafton.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to mention, I think one of the areas where I would like to see improvements is Jasmine Close in Wisbech. There's a playground there. I would like the play equipment has deteriorated over the years, and I would like to see some of these funds used to improve that area, please.
May I congratulate you, Sid, on managing to get a local ward bid in at the earliest possible opportunity, which is entirely appropriate, of course, given that we all are interested in looking after our individual wards. At the end of the day, we will look at this in the round. We will look at where there is the greatest need. We know that around Fenland there are some cold spots where we just don't have play equipment or easily accessible, and it's important that we do look at those cold spots. But additionally, we've got some areas where there is a much increased population for the amount of play equipment that we've got, and we need to recognise that as well. So I think we need to be quite practical about this, and it certainly won't be the case across Fenland that one size will fit all. So all considerations will be taken into account, including your representation, Councillor Mafton. Thank you very much indeed, and I'm sure we'll end up with a fair and equitable spread of spend right across the district. Councillor Seaton. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. So I've got a few points to make on this. I think it's right that we do need local members included, and I still think we need a very clear process on how we're going to propose ideas and how that's going to be decided. I'm going to also do a bit of a SID and get my ideas in early. I haven't formulated them all, but I think some of them, and it's actually, the first suggestion isn't actually my ward at all. So when I was aware of this, I have asked some people locally where they think would be good locations. By far and large, the two most popular places were not actually in my ward. They were Burcroft Road and Barton Road, which are both to the west of Wisbech. And the points people have made is both of those are very old, very tired, and very small, which is true. And also the west of Wisbech, I think probably the cold spots will show that the whole west side of Wisbech is actually very poorly served by play equipment. There's an awful lot in the centre, but actually to the west of the town, there isn't. So I think those two I'd quite like to put down a marker for. Also Heron Road in Wisbech, that's a bit more of a selfish one, but that's very badly maintained and could do with more. I would also like to think we could potentially consider some soft play provision in the pavilion. Bit of a wacky idea, but I'm interested to hear people's thoughts. And then finally, a number of people have suggested, not in my taste, this is in Sid's district ward, but in my county ward, what is known previously as the district ward of Staith, but it's currently a town ward of, it's not even a town ward anymore, but everyone knows it's Staith. They don't have anything, they don't have any play equipment, and I don't actually think they've really got much in the way of open spaces, so that could cause us some problems. But I'm quite excited actually to see these cold spots, and when we do see these cold spots, I think probably a condition survey, which I'm sure Phil's done in the past, about what kind of state the condition is, but also what we've got, because Wisbech Park, for example, has got loads. We've got loads and loads of stuff there. In other places, we've got perhaps just one swing. So I think it'd be useful to know, as well as the condition, what we've actually got in each location. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Hoy. And I do note now the first 6 requests have all been for Wisbech. I can assure you that money will be spread around fairly right across the district. It won't all be spent in Wisbech. And I think you were a little bit harsh, surely, when you said that it was some sort of personal advantage to you about Heron Road, because I don't believe you actually use this play equipment yourself, or were planning to. So I don't think there really would be that much of a personal case as far as that's concerned in Heron Road. Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I need to congratulate members for the list that has suddenly been put forward. I wasn't expecting that quite this afternoon, but no, it's very good to hear those ideas. And I think this emphasises why we do need um, a a person to do this work, to do this audit, to make sure that we are not just stacking up where there are already lots of playground areas. We need to make sure that it's an even spread across across our district, and it has to be spent by 2027. So time is short, and we need to be moving on with this as soon as possible. It's very much going to be member led. Then those ideas will come back to cabinet, and then there'll be a consultation. So, I think the sooner we can move on this and get this this proposal passed, the better it will be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you. As portfolio holder for Parks and Open Spaces, I'm well aware of Councillor Hoy's requests. She had requested them, I think, back in June, and obviously when we got the this money in place. But yes, as the leader has said, it will be looked at right across. But I totally agree with Councillor Seaton. This probably is going to be too much for one person. I think you're going to have to look at additional staff to assist to get these things in.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Mrs. French. Rather than additional staff, it may be redeployed staff rather than any additional staff, but that ultimately will be for the head of paid service to determine. Any other comments from anyone? Right, well, the recommendations that we have are on pages 97 to 98. They are to approve the allocation of the £1.5 million Pride in Place Impact Fund allocation to the delivery of improved open spaces and play park enhancements across the district, to delegate authority to the corporate director in consultation with the portfolio holders for open spaces and Inspire projects, to commence an assessment of open spaces, facilities and play parks, to identify, alongside local elected members, sites for improved or new facilities, and, crucially, to return to Cabinet with a report with recommendations on the specific projects to be undertaken, and to note the necessary recruitment of a part-time fixed-term contract project officer to ensure that the organisation has the capacity to deliver this work in a timely manner within the tight time frame and deadline of March 2027 stipulated by government. Those in favour, please show. And that's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 9 is the local plan update, which is to be found on pages 101 to 108 of your agenda pack. This is a report which Councillor Mrs. Laws would have brought forward, but unfortunately she is unwell today, so I'll do my best to fill in. I'll propose it. May I first of all have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you very much indeed. Right, local plan. We're currently operating on a local plan back from 1914, it might as well be 1914, from 2014, and it is significantly out of date and increasingly not fit for purpose. However, the local plan that we had been trying to move forwards with, the draft local plan, had been delayed. It was delayed first of all by COVID, and then delayed because a number of reports weren't made available, weren't able to be procured for us, and we really ran out of time on that. And especially with local government reorganisation coming up, it seemed fairly pointless for us to spend a significant amount of money, probably the best part of £1 million, on producing a new local plan if we weren't even able to see it through to our own termination, let alone see it actually come into operation. And that was our position, wait and see really, up until 3 weeks ago or so. And 3 weeks ago, government made a couple of announcements which changed the playing field entirely. The first is that they were going to issue a new national policy planning framework, which would make some significant changes to the way in which local planning planning authorities are operated. Maybe the biggest one, not that it really directly affects us, would be the reduction in the effectiveness of green belt land from residential development. But there were a whole host of other things which were going to be brought forward, including, for example, many smaller standard planning decisions not coming before local councils at all, but being decided on an obligatory basis under delegated powers by officers. So there were a number of changes which were taking place and we knew were going to take place. Additionally, there would be changes which would make it easier for applicants to get planning permission, because it is a government target to increase the number of houses which are built, and they believe that by doing that they will increase the number of planning applications which get through. I won't say anything about the efficacy of government policy. It doesn't seem to be working so far on the basis of the numbers we've seen, but that's a matter which is for debate in Westminster rather than here. So we had that announcement made 3 weeks ago, together with an associated announcement saying that every district council in two-tier areas and every other council in single authority areas, every council would need to make a declaration to government as to whether they would seek to put forward to inspectors a local plan which is currently being worked on no later than the 31st of December 2026, or if they would use an expedited process to bring forward a local plan based on the new NPPF and the new regulations which are coming out next year, in which case we would have up to 34 months to do that. Given that we're faced with a choice of one or the other, and our failure to make a choice would almost certainly result in government intervention, which would both cost us money and which would be less productive than us doing things ourselves, it was decided to recommend to Cabinet that we do move forwards with the second suggestion they made, because 31st December 2026 as a deadline for us to complete the existing draft local plan turned out not to be realistic. And I did push officers quite hard on this, but it was abundantly clear that we'd be setting ourselves up to fail if we tried to meet that particular deadline. Government has given us over £200,000 in order to progress a new local plan, so that will at least in part defray the costs. Additionally, a significant amount of the work that we've done for the existing draft local plan will be able to be utilised for the new local plan, just with some updating. So that also will tend to reduce cost. So as a result of all of that, what we are bringing forward today is a request that we do move forward on the new basis. In order to do that, first of all, we have to give formal notice to the MHCLG that we are withdrawing the emerging Fenland local plan for 2021 to 2040, which is what we had been working on. And we then also need to agree to commence the production of a new local plan under the new system to be completed no later than March 2028. That will cover the period 2025 to 2050 once the new plan-making regulations are published, and to delegate authority to the head of planning in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder to publish and keep up to date a new local development scheme, which is basically a timetable. So I proposed it, seconded by Councillor Mrs. French. Does anyone wish to debate this? No comment from anyone? Fine. We'll move to a vote then. Those in favour, please show. And that's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 10 is the Wisbech High Street update, which is to be found on pages 109 to 114. And I'm delighted that this is for Chris Seaton, Councillor Seaton, to introduce. Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with a monthly update about the ongoing work at 24 High Street, Wisbech, and the pre-construction planning for 1112 High Street. I'm pleased to confirm that the reconstruction of 24 High Street, the site known locally for 40 years as the Gap, or Cook's Butchers, is now complete. The project team anticipates meeting with the contractor this week for practical completion. This meeting will mark the point when Fenland District Council takes possession and responsibility for the building. The council will work to find a tenant for the ground floor shop, and the building's flats will be let out using a local letting agency, a letting policy agreed with the portfolio holder. To mark the completion of this significant high-impact project, the council plans to hold an official ceremony with partners in January. The completion of 24 High Street is the culmination of a challenging and costly project that began in 2013, with discussions to develop a bid to the Heritage Lottery Fund. The original four-storey 18th century building collapsed approximately 40 years ago, having historically housed businesses such as John Hives, a hardware man, and later Cook's Butchers. Rebuilding on the site presented considerable obstacles, including a narrow site, poor access, bad ground conditions due to the river's proximity, and the lack of a local site yard. The council is proud that the gap has finally been filled, significantly enhancing the town's streetscape. Much has been learned during the process at number 24, including managing issues with piling and the fit of the new building into a tight site. This learning will be implemented for the 1112 High Street project. And regarding 1112, unfortunately, there is no further update since November's Cabinet report, Chairman. The recommendation is that Cabinet notes the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Seaton. I'm very happy to second this item. And I'd just like to make a couple of comments. First of all, to thank officers for all the work which has been done to get us to the situation we're in now. And secondly, to congratulate local members in Wisbech who have shown a very great deal of tenacity, if not indefatigability, in their determination to see something constructive come out of the destruction of that gap. 40 years is an astonishingly long time for something to end up being done. And we all know some of the financial reasons behind that period. But I think that most of us had made an assumption that nothing more than a facade would ever go up there, certainly in our political lifetimes. So it is very, very welcome indeed to hear your news, and I'm sure we all look forward both to the official opening in January and to the actual occupation, both of the flats and also the letting of the retail unit itself. I'll open the subject up for discussion. Any comments from anyone? No. Good. Well, then we will note that report if that's acceptable to everyone. I see everyone indicating, it's suitable to note. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 11 is the Whittlesea Relief Road update on pages 115 to 124 on your agenda pack. This should have been put forward by Councillor Christie, unfortunately can't be with us today. So I shall propose it instead. Unfortunately, this is one of the agenda items which Councillor Hoy didn't say I was time limited on, so that will be helpful. There is a long story behind this, and the long story is given within the content of the report itself, it has to be said. We're at the stage where we're still seeking to complete the strategic outline business case. And since the first part of the work to complete the strategic outline business case was completed and reported back to Cabinet back in the summer of this year, there has since been significant increase in the amount of both residential and non-residential development, which has either been approved or which has been proposed and in all likelihood is going to be approved. And that just makes the case for the Whittlesea Southern Relief Road even more strong. So what is being suggested here is that we do ask for this to be prioritised. The most appropriate body to prioritise this and to pay for this is the combined authority, since they are the ones who are responsible for transport. And the mayor of the CPCA, Paul Bristow, has been in public very supportive indeed at the last board meeting of infrastructure projects in Whittlesea. But it's possible that they are unable to do that either this year or next, in which case what I'm asking is that we take the initiative both to consider provision within our own budget, but also to seek some support from Whittlesea Town Council if it turns out that it's necessary, because the CPCA is unable to find the funding to be able to complete the strategic outline business case. So that's putting it in a nutshell. I won't go through all the reasons why it's needed, unless members would like me to. And if a member would like to ask me that question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you very much indeed. Items open for discussion. Any comments from anyone? I know that if Councillor Laws were here, she certainly would have had a few words to say about this, but I thank you all very much indeed. Since there aren't any speakers, the recommendations are set out on pages 116 of the agenda pack. And they are to write to the CPCA under the current budget consultation to request inclusion of the cost of the next Whittlesea Relief Road report in the CPCA 2026-27 budget, or failing that, in the medium-term financial strategy for 27-28. To contact Whittlesea Town Council requesting that they consider offering financial support towards the cost of the report, and to consider inclusion within FDC's next budget or medium-term financial strategy for the provision of funds to cover or contribute towards the cost of the next Whittlesea Relief Road report as a backstop position. Those in favour, please show. And that's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 12 is the draft 6-month cabinet forward plan, which is to be found on pages 125 to 126 of your agenda pack. Are there any comments or questions about it? No. Forward plan is therefore noted for information. Agenda item 13, there are no items declared under agenda item 3 to be urgent. And then we move on to agenda item 14. Now, this is a confidential report on port operations, and members will note that it has been proposed that this report is exempt from publication in accordance with paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and this is because it contains commercially sensitive information relating to FDC and third parties, and for this reason it's considered to be in the public interest that the information is maintained as exempt at this time. I'm happy to propose that. May I have someone to second it? Councillor Seaton, thank you very much indeed. Those in favour, please show. Unanimous, thank you very much indeed. Member services, would you please enter the link to YouTube? I would ask for members of the public and press to leave at the same time as well, but we seem to be slightly lacking in those today. Thank you.